Alright guys, welcome, and in this video we're going to show you how we can set properly blocks for each athlete, and we're going to follow this new technique that might be new and it's going to be much better than previous techniques that many of you have done before. So I have today one athlete, his name is Zeta, and now today this athlete is going to show us how he used to set his blocks during his career. Now can you show us how you set the blocks usually? Okay, so now Zeta has set the blocks in the most common way known in the world of athletics, which is the 2 and 3 step phase. Basically, he will put 2 feet for the front blocks and 3 feet for the rear blocks. Now, we're going to ask Zeta to stand on the blocks and we're going to look how this looks like. Okay. Raise up. Okay, good.
So this athlete is one of the few cases where the proportion of the feet and the body is going to be correlated. So his feet going to force a mostly acceptable position on the blocks. However, we can see that the hip flexion, especially in the rear leg flexion of the knee, are not going to be very in a good position. They're quite tight, and thus this is not going to help to drive that leg forward during the execution from the blocks.
Okay guys, so this is the most common way of setting blocks for athletes around the world. However, this method is not actually accurate because it does not keep in consideration the different anthropometrics between one athlete to another. Because some athletes might be taller, some athletes might be shorter, some athletes might actually have big feet, just like in my case, and some athletes might have shorter feet, like in his case. Now, Zeta and me, come closer please, are the same height more or less, but you can see that we have a completely different size difference of the shoes. He's going to have more or less a 43, I have a 45, even though we have the same height. So as well, my femur length is going to be much shorter than his, so my block settings are going to be completely different to his, even though we are the same height. So we not might fit in the same block settings. So we have a new method that will keep in consideration all these anthropometrics difference from one athlete to another, and we're going to show you how to do this. So in step number 1, we're going to ask the athlete, in this case Zeta, to stand down on the starting line in a 6-point position. Feet, knees, and hands down. Okay. Now, we're going to ask the athlete to stay on the fingertips like in a block start position. On the fingertips, please. Now, a second thing that we're going to look is we're going to ask the athlete to shift his shoulders forward until the rear part of the armpit, so the armpit socket, it's aligned with the rear part of the starting line. So we're going to shift forward, and okay. And we reach this position with the knees. Please stay here with me. Now, step number 1, still, we're going to ask the athlete to move the knees until we are perpendicular with the iliac crest. So the iliac crest is more or less here. So we're going to ask the athlete to shift the knees until my point here. Shift, shift, shift. Also the other leg. Okay. Now, his rear leg is the right leg, so I'm going to control that his right leg is exactly in the correct position. So, keep the shoulders over here aligned. Iliac crest here. Perpendicular line, more or less here. Okay, come forward. Good. Now, in the second step, I'm going to ask the athlete to enter into a very tight dorsiflexion position on his ankles over here. We can only do right leg, we will do only right leg because the left leg will move forward. So this is going to be the position for his rear plate of the block. If we go to the next leg, the front leg, then we're going to ask the athlete to move his knee more or less 1 inch behind his elbows. So more or less here, you can put a hand to fix it. Okay. A little bit lower, back, a little back. Okay. And we're going to keep this position here. We're going to make sure that they are going to be in a good position. Now, so in step number 2 now, we have the athlete in a position, in a quite comfortable, good position following his anthropometrics, and we're going to measure the distance from the starting line to the toe. Measuring from the rear of the line until the toe over here. which is in this case is going to be 86 centimeters for the rear leg and 52 for the front leg. Now, the athlete can stand up and rest. You can step up, Zeta. Thank you. Now, in step number 3, we're going to transfer the measurements that we just took on the athlete directly on the block. So the front blocks is going to be 52. Okay, 52 for the front block, and we said 86 for the rear blocks. Okay, now we have transferred the measurements that we just took on the ground with those athletes, and we're going to ask the athlete Zeta to now stand on the blocks, and we're going to look how this looks like compared to before. Now, this is not a final position, this is a starting point, but it's a good starting point where we can then find the perfect blocks position for our athletes. First thing, make sure that the socket of the armpit is aligned with the rear part of the line, too much forward, okay. And then we're gonna raise. Now, what we're looking when we're raising into the blocks? eBay. Good. We're looking at a very good 80-degree angle of the hip flexors over here, a 120 more or less average of the knee flexion of the rear leg, and a 90-degree of the front leg. One thing that we need to make sure is that the athlete is able to have a full foot contact here on the plate, a full foot contact on the plate here.
By using this method, we can notice how the athlete is able to find a more correct position directly. You can see how the hip flexors now are more comfortable to a 78 degrees, so close to that 80 degree that we're looking for. And the rear leg is above 120, so anything between 120 and 130 is acceptable. So now we're 126, and also you can see how the two shins are not parallel, so the rear shin is dropping lower than the front shin a little bit. That's also what we're looking. We're not having the angles of the shank, but it's visible to see that they're more or less at 90 degrees. So this position now, the athlete is going to be able to push, execute out the blocks, produce horizontal force, and drive that right leg forward powerfully.
So this is already a good position where the athlete can begin and work on his block starts for the future.